Close your eyes for just a second. Picture a mountain. It is dark, it is silent, and somewhere near the top, inside a cave so small you would have to crawl to enter it, a man is alone. He cannot read, he cannot write. He has no title, no throne, no army. And tonight, something is about to find him.
Something that would not just change his life, something that would change the course of human history. And the month it happened in, that month, is Ramadan.
Welcome to Talk, Learn, Teach.
Let us begin. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome back to Talk, Learn, Teach. I am Khalid.
And I am Noor. And if you are new here, you have picked the most incredible episode to start with, because today we are going somewhere that honestly gave both of us chills when we were preparing for this.
Serious chills, Noor. I kept stopping my research just to sit with what I was reading.
Same. We are talking about the history of Ramadan, but not in the way you might have heard it before. We are telling this story from the point of view of the Quran itself, the Quran as witness, the Quran as narrator.
And before we go any further, if you're enjoying what we do here at Talk, Learn, Teach, please take 3 seconds right now and hit that subscribe button and share this episode with someone you care about, because this story deserves to reach as many hearts as possible.
Truly. Okay, Khalid, should we set the scene?
Let us set the scene.
So, to understand why Ramadan matters, why the Quran matters, you have to understand the world they arrived into. And Khalid, that world was not pretty.
Not pretty at all. We are talking about 6th century Arabia. And look, the Arabs of that era were genuinely impressive in a lot of ways. They were master poets. They could compose verses on horseback. They were fearless traders, crossing some of the most dangerous desert routes in the ancient world.
But
they were also living in deep, deep darkness. And I do not mean that judgmentally, I mean it historically. Infant daughters were buried alive because families feared the shame of having a girl. Slaves had no rights, no recourse, no hope. Tribal warfare could last decades over a single perceived insult.
And here's the part that always gets me, Khalid. They had the Kaaba, the sacred house in Mecca, the very house that, according to their own tradition, their own oral history, had been built by Ibrahim and his son Ismail as a house of pure monotheism, dedicated to the one God. They knew this story. It was their story.
And they had filled it with 360 idols. 360.
Which is just, every time I say that number, I cannot quite believe it. They had the truth in their hands, and they replaced it with stone.
And into this world, into this specific city of Mecca, in the year 570 of the Common Era, a boy was born. No father. His father Abdullah had died before his son ever drew breath. His mother Amina would die when he was just 6 years old.
He was raised first by his grandfather Abdul Muttalib, then by his uncle Abu Talib. No wealth, no political power. He never attended a school because no school existed for him to attend. He never learned to read. He never learned to write.
And yet everyone around him called him El-Amin, the trustworthy one. Not a title anyone gave him, a name that simply attached itself to him because it was true. His name was Muhammad, son of Abdullah.
And the universe, as we will see, had been quietly, patiently waiting for him.
So Muhammad, PBUH, reaches his 40th year, and something is shifting in him. He spent his whole life uncomfortable with the idol worship around him, with the cruelty around him, with the injustice of a society that treated the weak as disposable.
And he starts doing something that the people of Mecca found a little strange. He starts retreating. He starts climbing a mountain on the northern edge of the city, a mountain called Jabal al-Nur, the Mountain of Light, and going into a small cave near its summit, a cave called Hira.
And he would stay there for days at a time, sometimes weeks. Just him, the sky, the silence, and whatever was moving in his soul that he did not yet have words for.
His wife, Khadija, would send food up to him. She was worried, but she also understood him in a way nobody else did. She had married him knowing exactly who he was, a man of unusual depth and integrity.
And then, one night, in the last 10 days of the month of Ramadan, in the year 570 of the Common Era, everything changed.
The Quran opens its own story in chapter 96, the very first words ever revealed. And Khalid, there is no buildup, there is no gentle introduction, it just arrives.
Read, in the name of your Lord who created man from a clinging substance. Read, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not.
But the accounts preserved by Muhammad himself describe what happened before those words came. He was alone in the dark of that cave, and suddenly he felt it, a presence, and then an embrace, not gentle, an embrace so forceful, so overwhelming, that he later said he thought he was going to die from the pressure of it.
And then the command, Iqra, read.
And Muhammad, a man who had never once in his 40 years read a single letter, said the only true thing he could say, I cannot read.
The embrace tightened, read.
I cannot read.
A third time, read.
And then something happened that has no natural explanation. Words poured through him, not from him, through him, like he was a vessel and something was being poured in.
He ran down that mountain in total darkness, shaking so violently his companions later described him as a man who had completely lost his composure. And Muhammad, a man known for his absolute calm, ran to Khadija and said words that across 14 centuries still carry the weight of raw terror. Cover me, cover me.
She wrapped him in her cloak. She held him until the shaking slowed. And then, when he told her what had happened, what she said next is one of my favorite moments in all history.
Tell them, Noor.
She said, By God, he will never humiliate you. You maintain family ties. You carry the burden of the weak. You help those who have nothing. You honor your guests. You support people in their genuine hardship.
She did not say, are you sure that really happened? She did not say, maybe you were dreaming. She looked at the character of the man she had spent years beside, and she said, whatever just happened to you because you are the kind of person it was supposed to happen to you.
I think about Khadija so often when I think about this story, because Muhammad did not face that cave alone. He was steadied first by one woman who simply refused to let him doubt himself.
That night, in the last 10 days of the month of Ramadan, in a cave called Hira, the Quran began.
Now, here's the thing that makes Ramadan absolutely unique in the entire landscape of world religions and world history. The Quran, the very scripture born in this month, speaks about the month its own birth in.
It tells its own origin story. In chapter 2, verse 185, it says, and this is one of the most extraordinary lines in all of religious literature.
The month of Ramadan is the one in which the Quran was revealed as guidance for humanity and as clear proofs of guidance and the standard of right and wrong.
Think about that. The book says, I know where I came from. I know when I arrived. Remember that month, because that month is when everything changed.
The Quran was not delivered in one evening. It came over 23 years, through years of persecution in Mecca, through exile, through battles, through heartbreak and victory, and everything in between. Verse by verse, sometimes in a flood, sometimes a single line in response to a crisis happening right then, right there.
But the first night, the night the whole thing began, was in Ramadan.
And then, in chapter 97, the Quran speaks about that specific night, the night of first revelation, and what it says is almost too big to hold in your mind.
Indeed, we sent it down during the night of power. And what can make you know what the night of power is? The night of power is better than 1,000 months. The angels and the Spirit descend therein by the permission of their Lord for every matter. Peace. It is until the emergence of dawn.
Better than 1,000 months, Khalid. That is 83 years, more than an entire human lifespan.
The Quran is saying one night, one right night, sought with the right heart and the right month, is worth more than a whole life lived any other way.
That is not a metaphor. That is a promise from the divine, stamped into the identity of Ramadan forever.
So at this point, Noor, people might be wondering, when did the actual fasting begin? Because the revelation started in Ramadan, but when did Ramadan become the month of fasting?
Great question, and the answer might genuinely surprise people. Fasting was not commanded immediately. The early Muslims in Mecca spent over a decade just trying to survive. They were boycotted, they were tortured, they were killed. Fasting was honestly the least of their problems.
It was only after the Hijra, the migration to Medina, in the second year of that new life that the command came. And when it came through chapter 2 of the Quran. And the way it is worded is everything.
O you who have believed, decreed upon you is fasting, as it was decreed upon those before you, that you may become righteous.
That you may become righteous, not that you may suffer, not that you may demonstrate your willpower to the world. The entire stated purpose of fasting in the Quran is taqwa, this deep-lived God awareness that shapes every choice you make.
Fasting is not punishment. It is a curriculum.
Beautifully said. And then, Noor, immediately after the command, look at what the Quran does.
It carves out the exceptions right there in the same breath. Whoever is ill or on a journey, they fast the missed days later. Those for whom fasting is a genuine hardship, they can feed a poor person instead. The flexibility is built in from the very beginning.
This is one of those moments where you see the character of the Quran so clearly. A God who commands and in the same sentence reaches towards every person who might struggle with that command and says, I see you. You are not excluded. There is a path for you too.
You are not left behind. That phrase gets me every time.
Okay, so we have the revelation, we have the command. But Khalid, I think one of the most powerful parts of this story is watching how the Prophet himself actually lived through Ramadan, because his companions preserved these descriptions and they are extraordinary.
They really are. His companions said he was already the most generous person they had ever known in ordinary times. But in Ramadan, they said he became like a free wind, like generosity itself had taken human form and was walking among them.
He broke his fast on almost nothing, a date, some water, and whatever he had he gave away before he slept.
He prayed through the nights, long, voluntary prayers in the silence before dawn, and his companions would hear him reciting the Quran in those prayers, and they said his chest would heave with the emotion of it. They described the sound as like a boiling pot. A man alone in the dark, weeping over the words that had come through him, not performing for anyone, just moved.
The Quran in chapter 17 speaks directly to the Prophet about the night prayer. And from the night, pray with it as additional for you. It is expected that your Lord will resurrect you to a praiseworthy standing.
That verse was addressed to him specifically, and in Ramadan, it was his most natural state.
And then there is itikaf, the last 10 nights of Ramadan. The Prophet would enter the mosque and essentially not leave, complete spiritual seclusion, every year searching for that night of power, the one night better than 1,000 months.
And here is the thing that I find so deeply moving. He did not know which specific night it was. The Quran left it deliberately hidden within those last 10 nights, as if to say, do not just show up on the right night, show up every night with your whole heart.
Seek it. Do not just schedule it.
Exactly. And then, Noor, there's this one verse placed right in the middle of all the fasting legislation, chapter 2, verse 186, that completely breaks the formal tone of everything around it. Someone came to the Prophet and asked, does God actually hear us in these prayers? Is he close enough to hear? And normally in the Quran, God speaks in the third person, He, the Lord, the Most High. But in this verse, everything changes.
And when my servants ask you concerning me, indeed I am near.
I respond to the call of the one who calls when he calls upon me.
My servants, I am near. I respond. In the middle of rules about fasting, God steps forward and speaks in the first person, as if the question itself was too personal to be answered by anything except the most direct possible response.
When the question is about whether I am listening, I will not let anyone else answer it.
That verse is the heartbeat of Ramadan.
Now, Noor, we have to talk about something that a lot of people don't fully realize. Ramadan was not just a month of quiet prayer and spiritual reflection for the early Muslim community. It was also a month of some of the most defining moments in their entire history.
The very first major battle in Islamic history, the Battle of Badr, happened in Ramadan, second year after the Hijrah, the same year fasting had just been made obligatory.
So these Muslims were fasting, and they were walking into battle. 313 of them, Noor. Most of them poor, many of them former slaves, many of them still carrying the scars of years of persecution. Fasting, undernumbered by more than 3 to 1.
The Quran called Badr the day of the criterion, the day that divided truth from falsehood. That pivotal, impossible victory happened in Ramadan.
And then, 8 years after the Hijrah, came the single greatest event of the entire early Islamic period, the conquest of Mecca. And Noor, it happened in Ramadan.
The Prophet returned to the city that had driven him out, tortured his followers, killed his companions. He returned at the head of 10,000, and he entered Mecca without a single act of aggression, without blood, without revenge. He walked to the Kaaba, that house once filled with 360 idols, and he went idol by idol, reciting the verse, "Truth has come and falsehood has vanished. Indeed, falsehood is bound to vanish." And the idols fell, one by one.
And then the people of Mecca, the people who had hurt him most, gathered before him, and he looked at them and said something that stunned the ancient world. Go, you are free.
No execution, no enslaving of the conquered, no seizing of property. Just go. You are free.
The month of liberation, the month of revelation, the month of impossibly graceful victory. That is Ramadan.
Khalid, we have to talk about the final chapter, because the last Ramadan of the Prophet's life is one of the most tender, most bittersweet things I have ever read about.
It was the year 632. The Prophet was 63 years old. 23 years had passed since that night in the cave. 23 years of carrying the Quran, being the Quran, teaching the Quran.
He had outlived Khadija. He had buried children. He had watched his dearest companions die. He had known exile and poverty and physical suffering. He had also known victory, unity, and the transformation of an entire civilization at a speed that had no parallel.
And in this final Ramadan, the angel Jibril, who had been the messenger of revelation for those entire 23 years, came to the Prophet not once but twice, and they reviewed the entire Quran together, from the very first word of chapter 96 to the last verse, as if conducting a final audit before something was about to close.
The Prophet understood. He privately told his daughter Fatima that he believed his time was near. She wept, and he consoled her by telling her she would be the first of his family to join him, that they would not be apart for long. She stopped weeping, and she smiled.
The final verses among the last revealed, scholars tell us, included this one from chapter 5. Today I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor upon you, and have approved for you Islam as your religion.
Perfected, completed, approved. 3 words that seal 23 years. 3 words that say the conversation is finished. Everything that needed to be said has been said.
The prophet passed from this world a few months later. He left behind no palace, no treasury, no earthly kingdom. He left behind a book and a community that would carry that book for the rest of human history.
14 centuries later, more than 1 billion people still carrying it.
So, Noor, after all of that, what sits with you most?
Honestly, Khadija. I keep coming back to her because for all the grandeur of the story, for all the miraculous moments, what made it survivable in those first terrifying hours was one person who looked at a trembling man and said, "I believe you. I know who you are. You were made for this."
And for me, it is that verse, chapter 2, verse 186, "When my servants ask you concerning me, indeed I am near." In the middle of religious law, in the middle of legislation about fasting, God pauses everything and says, "And by the way, I am close. I hear you. I answer."
Ramadan is not a month of hunger. It is a month of nearness. That is what the Quran is saying.
So now, when that crescent moon appears and that first fast begins, you are not just going without food. You are stepping into the anniversary of the night the universe spoke. You are walking in the footsteps of a man who trembled in a cave and ran home shaking. You are standing inside the memory of a community that fasted through battles, survived persecution, and built something that outlasted every empire that tried to crush it.
The question the Quran always leaves open is not about Muhammad. It is about you. What will you do with this month? What will you seek in these nights? And when life shakes you the way that cave shook him, will you let someone cover you with a cloak and remind you, you were made for exactly this?
That is the history of Ramadan, from the Quran itself.
And that is only the beginning.
Thank you. Truly, sincerely, thank you for sitting with us through this story today. These are the episodes that remind us why we started Talk, Learn, Teach in the first place.
If something in this episode moved you, please share it. Send it to a friend, a parent, a sibling. Play it in the car. Let it reach someone who needs it tonight. Stories this old and this true deserve to keep traveling.
And if you are not yet subscribed to Talk, Learn, Teach, please do it right now. We are building a community here, people who believe that real learning should feel something, not like a textbook, like a conversation between people who genuinely care.
Now we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Which moment hit you hardest? Was it Khadija wrapping the trembling prophet in her cloak? Was it the verse where God says, "I am near"? Was it the fasting army of 300 standing before 1,000?
Or maybe you have your own Ramadan story, something this month has given you that you want to share with this community. This comment section is yours. We read everything.
And if there is a story from Islamic history, from the Quran, from the life of the Prophet or his companions that you want us to explore next, tell us. Some of our most powerful episodes were born right here in the comments.
Till next time, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.
Ramadan Mubarak to everyone celebrating, and peace be with you wherever in the world you are listening from.
This is Talk, Learn, Teach.
And we'll see you in the next one.